Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, buddy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Late Night Happy Hour. I have an iced tea. I'm not allowed to drink until the beginning of the month. Court order. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky. It's a weird court order. Really excited tonight to welcome to the show Stephen Falk and Chris Geere. You know them from You're the Worst, one of the great comedies of, I don't know, pick an era. How long do you like to say you're 100 years, 200 years, but it ran for 5 seasons on FX, was genuinely fantastic. And they are getting back together for an event on Sunday, a reunion to benefit Feeding America. You can buy tickets this way. We'll show you this.
Nice.
And
it rolls off the tongue. It's just like put that right in your browser.
You got to pick that up with the Eventbrite people. That really isn't us. I mean, we're just working with what we were given. Like that's.
Do you remember when we used to say that for every website? We used to go, it's www. Everything.
Again, this is literally cut and pasted. Like this was what we were provided.
Yeah. I just put up what Andy puts in the thing. And
you guys can't even afford a tiny URL or a Bitly.
Steve, you've noticed the absence of sponsors on this show, haven't you? So I think you can answer that question.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 6 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock out here. You go to Eventbrite, and we'll tweet this out a bunch of times over the course of the show. You buy yourself some tickets, and you get yourself access to this. So explain what's going to be going on. There's going to be like a reading and a Q&A and all that. What is this?
Well, this is a company that's been doing these during the pandemic. I don't know if they were around before, Play Per View, and they've been doing all the big ones. And basically, we are going to the entire cast and all of the co-stars and then even the guest stars of a particular episode that I picked are going to be on the computer doing a live read of an episode from season 2. Called A Rapidly Mutating Virus, but it's a really good episode. Paul F. Tompkins is going to join us and do some of the minor bits, and I'm going to be reading the stage directions. And the woman Leah Wellbaum from Slothrust, who did our theme song, she's going to perform it live at the beginning. Our composer Adam Blau is going to be there. Playing some of the music from the show. Clearly, we're all just bored and miss each other. We were all available, and yeah, I think it's going to be really fun. And I sort of said this on Instagram, and I meant it. I don't get excited about much, particularly not like things I have to do, and particularly not things I have to do in front of the computer like this. But I am genuinely really, really excited about this reading coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you're helping out Feeding America. And what in particular drew you?
We're giving money away? We're not taking it? Oh.
Well, I figured that Feeding America was your shell company.
I'm located in the Galapagos Islands. And,
exactly. I mean, look, what you guys do with this money is up to you. And I want to make it very clear. Brian and I know nothing about this. We're going the information that we were given, and where this money gets funneled to in case they need witnesses, we know absolutely nothing. But like, what were you allowed to choose the organization that you wanted to help with, or did they choose it for you? How did you end up with Feeding America?
Well, I asked them if we could donate to the Legal Defense Fund for the good patriots who stormed the Capitol on the 6th, but they, for some reason, they said no, and then I just said I don't give a shit.
Fucking cancel culture, man.
Hungry people, I guess. No, this was something that I think they are contracted, or it's a pet project of theirs. Yeah, but Feeding America, I assume it's legitimate.
Let's hope.
Wait, Chris, why do you care about Feeding America?
Yeah, no one's feeding Britain at the moment either. So
I think Andy just walked right. I think Andy just walked right into that first day of law school thing where they say, "Don't ask the question unless you know what the answer is going to be."
Right. Well, I mean, the reason that I asked other than, I guess my wrongheaded thought that I could get some sincerity in the response was just the show actually itself has done a lot of comedy rooted in serious causes. Like you guys actually got into serious stuff like depression, Jimmy's character's relationship with his father, Edgar's PTSD. So I thought maybe, just maybe, there could be some elevated response other than contractually obligated.
Well, you've heard Chris's accent. He takes he gives the elevated responses. Chris, what do you have to say?
I have no idea. I have to trust that this is legitimate. Otherwise, we really are the fools. No, I think it's great. It's selfishly, it's a wonderful opportunity to like catch up with our family. It's nothing's really been like You're the Worst since we all finished, and it's just a fantastic opportunity to do it again. I remember watching, they did the Goonies early on in lockdown. I was like, this is so cool. It was such a great idea, and everyone coming back, and then everyone started doing it. And then as soon as it was entertained that we would do this, the internet loved it. So I'm so excited to do it.
Yeah, I think that's to dovetail on what Chris said. I think it is actually really, really nice that we're able to connect with the people who liked our show and miss our show, and it's really nice to be able to just kind of hang with them. I think as a cast, I wasn't in the cast, but I got to hang out with them occasionally, and the closeness that they had with each other, and also just like in general, they're all just really good people who do charity work and are constantly doing good things, or at least saying good things. It's inspiring, and I know we're dumb Hollywood liberals, but this is a really good group of people who genuinely loved each other. And I think, to answer a question you didn't ask, I think part of what made the show really kind of enjoyable for a lot of people is that I think the goodwill that everyone had and the fun that everyone had came off on the screen. And I don't mean like in an Ocean's 13 way where they clearly just wanted to go and fucking party in Monaco or wherever the third one was set, but that they all just really, really liked the show and liked being with each other, and everyone's still really, really close. It's kind of remarkable.
It's wonderful how people are connected to us, even though we've never met them. It's lovely, and it seems like the fan base has just been growing since we finished. And I get messages every day from people saying that they were inspired or affected or just loved it. And it's great. It's a lovely opportunity for us all to kind of look through the photo album.
If people missed a season or two, they've had time to catch up, which probably makes a difference.
I've started it again. I'm in the minority of actors that really don't mind watching myself. I'm just so
fucking good in the show. I need to keep watching it again.
Well, it's fun. Do you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to be posting something very cool actually on Instagram that my manager and I have been putting together, which is my first audition for You're the Worst on tape. Wow. That I sent from England into cut with the actual scene. And
really,
it's so cool. It's really it was so fun to look back on it, and I was like, oh my god! And I was just this, I don't know how old I was. How many years ago was I? I'm so old now. But it was fantastic to reminisce on where I was kind of mentally at that point, and the fact I was so carefree and just go for it. This is brilliant. And then watching the show, and it really isn't that different. And it kind of shows me how much trust Stephen had in me to do it. So that was fascinating. Wow. I'm looking forward to sharing that.
Well, sorry guys. I know we haven't let you talk, but just that really reminded me when I was auditioning people for the Jimmy character, who was written as American guy. I auditioned everyone, and not to denigrate any of the fine people who auditioned, but just no one quite hacked it. And then I got this little tape, probably a DVD, or maybe even a file. I was about to say a VHS tape.
Ken's behind the camera like this.
and with Chris reading and saying these words with an accent that I didn't know that I'd actually written the character in, kinda. And immediately I was like, oh, I guess he's English. Yeah, that perfectly makes sense. And Chris flew out and was just lovely. And his kid had just been born, his first child, and he still got on a plane and came out and nailed it. And there's no great moral there, except when the right actor walks in the door, all preconceived notions of the character should go out the window, I think. And even
for people who don't know, the character was not written originally conceived as a British guy.
No, not at all. I mean, like, I don't care, because I don't really care. But like, I met with like Adam Pally. You know, he was the first guy I met with, and it was that type that I saw. It didn't end up working out, because I think he hated me. But no, I'm kidding. But yeah, that's sort of more of the type of guy I wrote it as in my mind.
How long did it take? What was it about the audition that clicked it in that way?
There's a eloquence that Chris has, even though he had to look up a lot of the words, because I wrote him as a very pretentious writer. I mean, his name is Jimmy Shive Overly, and that was the name even when he was an American dude. But he just had the haughtiness and the hotness and the ability. The ability to say sort of really nasty things but remain charming, and I hate the word likable, but watchable and charismatic, and likable. And yeah, and I mean, Chris is just a tremendous actor.
You talked before, both of you guys, about like how close this cast grew, and that's one of the reasons you guys are excited to be doing this fundraiser beyond just the good cause of it all. How long did it take for that to build? Because there was a lot in there that was, friendships that had already been developed, and from the beginning you had to establish that.
I think it was pretty instantaneous, actually, because we were all in the audition room at the same time, doing our screen test at the same time, and it was terrifying for all of us, and then it was rewarding for all of us, and then it was exciting for us all to be on set, and then it was terrifying again, wondering whether we were going to get picked up, and so we went through the whole thing together. And over 5 years, you do, I mean, it's so typical to say, but you do become a family, and you go through all the ups and downs and everything together. And we can't say that we were best friends every single day. That doesn't happen. That's not real life. But we did stick with each other throughout everything. And I can vouch for however many sets I've been on, is that's not always the case. And it's just refreshing, and it will be always the bar that I will set for myself to try and find that next thing. It's about that charisma.
Is there, you guys mentioned, and we're just talking about now, that's sort of the dynamic that you have with the cast, is in terms of how people get along and how they interact. Is it different? Is there a different kind of necessity for a cast camaraderie or chemistry, or whatever word you want to use, when the people that you are playing on screen are often doing intensely unlikable things to each other, and are not good people to each other in the work that you're doing?
Well, I've witnessed both, and I don't want people to IMDb sort of do detective work, but you can. But I've written some stuff that is really intense, and had actors not support each other, and frankly, I've had actors like come to me afterwards crying because one of the actors totally just tanked their performance when they were off camera, gave nothing. When you're off camera and you're sort of just reading the lines behind the camera for the other actor, this person just like went dead and gave nothing back. And it was a really intense, emotional scene. and so, I mean, and then that came out of the off-screen chemistry and sort of the jealousy or the not wanting the other person to have the moment, sort of. And with this cast, it was the exact opposite. Everyone was so generous and so wanted the others to do well and supported each other, and they would meet at each other's house and run lines, even in the 5th season when everyone's lives were a lot more complicated and busy. So I don't know about you, Chris, but my observation is that you don't have to. You can hate each other and be a dick, and then have a lot of great fuel that might fuel a scene, but certainly not a 5-season comedy mixed with a lot of intense stuff. I think you need a good amount of chemistry and trust.
I don't know whether there's. I've never known of a written formula for chemistry, but I think if I were to write one, it would be wanting the other person to be the best that they can be. And, that we got to know each other's kind of styles and moods on and off set. And we knew how to draw the best out of each other. And whether we needed to give each other space, or whether we needed to distract the other one, or whether we needed to just keep running lines or talking about the scene or doing something, we found our own formula. And Desi, Aya, Kether, and I are 4 incredibly different people, but we're family. We know each other so well. And I spoke to Aya this morning. You don't do that. Most shows you don't do that. And there was an audition that has just come through for me, and I wanted to talk to her about it. And that's pretty unique. A couple of years later, 5 seasons down the line, both of us have gone in different directions. We live in different states. It's super cool, and I'm never going to take that for granted.
I'm working with the guys who played the rappers, Daryl, Brandon, and Alan. Yeah, we're doing something together. And they were telling me that Daryl was talking about getting an audition and then immediately calling Brandon and being like, "Yo, tell your agent you got to go up for this." You're they supporting each other, and I was like, that's really rare and crazy.
I mean, Desi and I are working together on the same production right now.
Really?
Yeah, they're both working on a show together. It's amazing.
A Paul Feig show, yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. Little Country, something like that. Anyway, it was an adaptation of an English show, but I mean, they're there. I mean, Kether's on TV at the moment.
Yeah,
everyone's doing other things, and we're all supporting each other. It's not just about giving someone a like. I spoke to Todd just before Christmas, who plays Vernon.
Yeah,
and I said to him,
that guy.
Nah, he sucks.
And and I said to him, right, my kid is now 8. It's Christmas. Can I, what movie should I be watching? I send him emails, and he'll go, well, when his boy was this age, he was watching this and stuff like that. It's just small bits of kind of connection. I miss these guys a lot.
We want to take a question here real quick for you, Steve, from Sector Cruise on the chat board. What's more difficult, whether writing a show for cable or regular TV, in terms of the limitations that you see?
Why does Sector Cruise start the question with sorry?
Because he had written a question before and it cut off. And I was letting him know that it actually cut off.
Say, claim your inquiry.
He's afraid to look you in the eyes, Steve. Your television's Stephen Falk.
I'm right.
Also, too, you look like an insane person, so I wouldn't look you directly either.
I might ask for change.
He's worried you're going to be grouchy from that day at the docks.
I'm a stevedore now.
It's a very versatile look.
Look, some people really thrive on network television, like Mike Schur, who does The Good Place and Parks and Rec and other things. I think he's found a way, or even Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who did 30 Rock, and then they have Mr. Mayor right now, and I think they have found a way to make network really sing and work for them. I'm not as smart as them, and my jokes, I kind of need to be able to rely on some good curse words to make the funny happen. But limitations in general, I think, are really useful as an artist. Whether it's a amount of time you have, or even a language thing. We couldn't freely curse until I think the 5th season, where we really could just say whatever.
I remember the day when we saw one in the script and we were like, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
What was the word? What was the first word you got to use?
I think Aya got an F-bomb, didn't she?
Yeah, I think she got fucked. I mean, because I think the People versus OJ kind of dropped a lot, and then Atlanta did, and I went and did FX within the FX world, and so I went to Landgraf. I was like, so I'm just gonna do it. We can just do it now. And he was like, I mean, whatever. It's because like the censors are sort of a separate thing. But limitations are good. But I do like writing for cable or streaming. Because of those limitations are gone, and we didn't get to have boobies, but when I did Weeds and Orange is the New Black, I immediately put in some boobs, and so I look forward to being able to do that again.
Well, you're still young enough, Steve. You've got something to shoot for as your career continues. I mean,
Yes.
This is the thing that keeps you going.
Yeah.
Do you notice anything, Chris, from a performer's perspective, like in terms of the limitations with regular TV versus cable?
Well, Chris went and did Modern Family for a bunch of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really apart from a language thing. I mean, just the pace of it. I mean, I remember doing Modern Family and You're the Worst in the same day. One day, it was hands down one of the coolest days ever, and we shot 2 pages of You're the Worst in the afternoon, but I'd already done 11 pages for Modern Family. So the pace was like, it's wonderful. It's such a well-oiled machine, that show.
Well, probably because the show creator wasn't an asshole about everything.
Say again.
Probably.
But the show, the creator of the show probably just isn't an asshole about everything, making you do everything over and over and over again.
Well,
they call him Stephen Fincher Falk.
We were allowed more time, more locations. You're in one studio on the Fox lot doing Modern Family, and the characters just all knew each other so well that you're fitting into this well-oiled machine, and you've either got to step it up or you're out.
Also, they shoot multi-camera and just swing around and fight. It's mockumentary style, even though it's not a mockumentary crew. So that's how they can tear through pages. Also, Ed O'Neill has to be out by about 3 or he gets cranky. So they're pretty much done.
No comment.
What's it like though? What is it like though, Chris, to walk into? I mean, because that's very different than what you were describing before about these people coming together and everybody meets, and then now all of a sudden everybody's kind of going through it at the same time. To walk into Modern Family what was that experience like?
I think I was quite fortunate because I wasn't fully aware of the hype of the show because I was English, and even though it was on, it wasn't the Emmy award winning show that everyone over here knows it as. So to me, it was just a cool comedy that I used to catch on TV every so often in England. And I purposefully didn't watch too much of it before I went in, so I wasn't going to get spooked by it. I just kind of watched a few episodes with the characters that I was playing opposite, so that I could see how I could help them, because that was my job: come in and make them look as best as they could. So it was
were they nice to you?
They were hands down the most fantastic bunch of people. I mean, we did 5 years and solid friendships came from the end of it. These guys 11 years down the road are proper family. Wow. It was amazing. And a lot of the crew actually as well had been there from season 1. It was quite fortunate because a lot of the crew on Modern Family had worked with us on their off seasons. So I had a couple of familiar faces to see every day. That was great.
That's very cool. I got kind of a deep cut question for Steve from Jeremy Wine. Curious to know if you can discuss the decision to change the title sequence between seasons 2 and 3. Might have been 3 to 4.
That is deep cut.
No, that's a really inside inside baseball question. I love title sequences. I can't guarantee I'll always have them, but I probably will, and that has to do with the suddenly time doesn't really matter. You used to be really stuck to in network, 20 minutes and 30 seconds of actual screen time and your credits count. And it used to be 25, 26 when the original like Cheers, and even going back, like Gilligan's Island had a really long theme. I really like themes, and I think it's kind of sets the tone for the show. And now if you look, everything is just like girls, and then or Atlanta, and then maybe a little musical sting. But now with streaming, and they don't really care how long shit is. Small acts is like an hour, some are two. It doesn't matter, which I think is not the greatest thing for comedy. I think you do need a sort of a time restriction. But anyway, long story short, so I still wanted to have a title sequence. A, I was getting a little tired of that. B, the actors had changed. They just, changed their looks, gotten older, gotten fitter, just grew up a little bit. And it always just sort of bothered me when shows use the same title sequence like 5-6 years in, and it felt like a good opportunity to change it. So that's why I did.
Wasn't the first title? Wasn't the footage for that taken during our costume fittings before we'd even?
Yeah, that was the camera test for like makeup and hair and camera test footage.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So those are people, holding up outfits or just doing a little twirl. And our director of the pilot, Jordan Vogt Roberts, was just sort of directing them to do things. We were checking out lenses and getting to know each other. That's why you can see tape marks on the floor and then our editor, and I can't remember which editor, I'm sorry, but came up with it and just said, here, because I had the song, and just cut it together. And I was like, that was
really cool.
Yeah, it caught this playfulness that we could, if we had tried to stage it, it would have been pretty stupid.
Yeah, of course, we had no idea that's what you were doing, and we hadn't even filmed day one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's lovely.
I mean, that just speaks to, I guess, just the openness you guys, whether as a performer, whether as a writer, creator, you just have to be open to things different than you expected, because sometimes something is going to be better. I mean, for example, getting Chris on this show as a Brit for that role is better than what you had originally conceived. But if you had been closed off to it or just been like, no, he has to be American, it could have led to a very different and probably bad decision.
Yeah, I think, generally speaking, and this is something I still struggle with a lot. You do all the work and you have your ideas and you have your shot list if you're directing, and you have your script if you're writing. And then if a better idea comes along or something happens on the day that is better than what you thought of, even if it came from one of the actors or a crew member or someone's visiting cousin, you just roll with it. And I think you do all the preparation and then you open yourself up to inspiration is the best way to do it.
How long does it take to learn that lesson?
A lifetime. I'm still learning it. I just know it, but I know a lot of shit that I don't really actually practice. I know drinking isn't good for you.
It's also wonderful.
I mean, it's only the AMA that says it's bad for you, and all the different clinics and places like that. But they're run by Big Sobriety. That's where they get all their
Big Sobriety.
Where they get all their money from.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask both of you guys about, like, You're the Worst really pushed the limits in terms of what could be funny with really selfish behavior. And I mean, there's a lot. We meet the couple at the center of the show stealing a gift from a wedding, and these characters end up really endearing in a fucked up way, but they are selfish throughout the entirety of this show. And it got me thinking about the selfishness that we've seen in the COVID era. And I was wondering if you think you could make something like anti-masking behavior funny, or the unwillingness to social distance funny, because There's a difference between humor that you feel like you shouldn't laugh at, but you are, versus stuff that seems to be aggressively upsetting people, that people don't want to laugh at because they genuinely don't find it funny. Like, not that you would look to do it, but you think you could do it.
This is where I'm secretly manifesting a random season 6 to come from nowhere, because not only, I mean, I remember speaking to Stephen about, when we finished after season 5, I said, what would you like to explore if we were to do another one? And he said, just them being parents, which would be fantastic. But every time something happens in life, real life, I often wonder how Jimmy and Gretchen would react to those things. Would they wear masks? Would they protest? Would they loot? Would they counteract the problem? What would they do? I mean, this is what the fans could always relate to, because they took what all of us are thinking and actually showed it in a different way. They physically or through language just spoke about the truth. It's refreshing to people, because most of the problems that Gretchen and Jimmy had, we all have, and they just spoke about it in a more kind of harsh but yet succinct way.
Yeah, I mean, I think selfish behavior is just behavior,
right?
Even behavior that is meant to impact the world in a good way, or even a character is a total do-gooder. They're doing it for their own reasons, and that is selfish. So, for me, there's nothing funnier than a character staking out their or staking their flag on any issue in a wrong-headed way. I think that's funny, and I think everyone is self-motivated, and that's sort of why I wrote the show, not to like portray assholes, but to really rebel against this very American notion of likability in TV characters. Because honestly, getting back to the Britishness of it all, I was raised on a lot of British television, and characters, even from later ones like Ned and Stacey and Ab Fab, and they were allowed to just be really monstrous, and that was funny and real to me, and they didn't have to sort of always keep this eye on this sort of network idea of making sure your character is likable.
Yeah.
Because that's not humanity. I mean, like when I think of the characters the characters that go down in history, you're looking at like Falstaff or Sam on Cheers, or Tony Soprano, or Al Swearingen, who soliloquizes while he's getting his
Larry David.
Yeah, or Larry David. I mean, these are characters. Their behavior is not good. I mean, Tony Soprano kills people while he's showing his daughter around. And so, I guess my point being that I don't care about likability. What I care about is watchability.
Oh, sure. To me, what's just interesting about it isn't the idea of likability, because I agree with you. Likability is not mandatory at all to make characters interesting. Most of the shows I like feature unlikable characters. It's just interesting what people will allow themselves to laugh at versus not laugh at, versus really not wanting to laugh at something, because everybody has a strong, like if you're talking about, for example, masks during COVID, people are outraged in their reaction to it one way or the other. They're either outraged because they have to wear one, or they're outraged because you're seeing somebody not wear one. And these videos that go viral of these confrontations, I've never seen anybody react to it with, shit, that's kind of, I mean, this behavior is so ridiculous, it's hilarious. Yeah. Like I've never actually seen that reaction.
If you showed that footage to us 5 years ago, it would be ridiculous to watch. I think the amount of judgment is really harsh. So much so that my wife and I have started calling it FOGO, which is like a fear of going out. Just don't want to go anywhere. FOMO. I don't mind missing out on anything. But they're talking about Los Angeles, all the restaurants might open again. Not interested, mate. I'm not interested. Literally, just I found my groove here now, and I'm cool. And and that's it. Because you don't want to be judged in any way. You don't want to be kind of seen not doing something that you're supposed to be doing. And everyone has a voice, not just the Karens. Everyone's pitching up about everything. But I saw a great little viral video today about just someone saying, just remember, every time you're wearing a mask, don't feel bad. You probably saved someone's life. If you can think about it in that respect, actually reward yourself every night for being fucking sensible and staying at home, doing the right thing, getting through this, wearing a mask if you have to go out, and that's it. It's not rocket science. Yeah, and yet there's been so much crap about it everywhere, every day. And to be honest, I mean, I have to have a few days off CNN because it's a drama.
Yeah, and that leads. That's kind of my next question, because like 2020, for so many reasons, between the pandemic and the election and all, it was a lot. It was a lot going on this year. It's a big year, 2020, and so
thankfully 2021's had no drama. So
yeah, right,
good,
smooth sailing thus far. But I'm wondering what you guys think the impact on content is going to be going forward. Like, Grant, I'm not a big Michael Bay fan, but like that movie came and I saw the trailer of it, and it's year 4 of the pandemic. It's even more deadlier than it was. Like, no, I'm not. There's 0% chance of me watching that. I'm not interested. Do you guys think appetites for things will change? Whether Steve as a creator, Chris as an actor, like what people want to see for the next couple of years might just be different.
I think it's a good question. I mean, I think things that directly address the pandemic, I don't think anyone is going to have any interest in that. And I think we've seen that from the 3 or 4, pandemic shows that have come and gone. I mean, we're in it. No one wants to, you don't write a play about the nightmare you're currently having. That just there's no distance. There's no nuance to be able to be had. My general feeling is art is going to be more necessary and gobbled up than ever. I do think live experience is going to be really necessary. I think box office is going to be huge. I think restaurants are going to make tons of money. I think, but it is a question of what is there going to be? Is there going to be this sort of idea that everyone's going to just want nice things like happy shows and no cynicism? But there was this great debate after 9/11. Like, is cynicism dead? No.
No.
But so is it escapism? Is it going to be hedonism? It may be hedonism. I don't know. But my overall feeling is that collective amnesia is going to strike really hard, and we're not going to have gained any fucking wisdom from any of this. We're going to want to forget about it immediately. If you look, the Roaring '20s were not a mistake, right? You could argue that it's because of World War I, but I argue because of the 1918, 1919 pandemic. People just wanted to then go get drunk and fucking dance to Charleston and
eat goldfish.
Yeah, so we may be looking at another Roaring '20s. God damn, I hope so.
I look particularly good in a flapper dress.
Thank you. Yeah, I have.
I think the history of America is we learn nothing from anything. I mean, it's pretty consistent. Yeah. We don't seem to learn lessons.
But I think I think in terms of sure, epidemiology should learn things, and politicians should learn things about national storage and about preparedness. But why should we learn it? Like, what is there to learn? We were stuck. We were caged for 18 months, and then we get out. I'm not going back in that cage.
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of, yeah, I mean, what am I going to learn moving forward from some Hollywood production that I didn't learn, as you said, from the 18 months in my house dealing with this unprecedented reality? Like, what am I going to learn from this show or movie?
Well, I think you go through the phases, don't you? You go through the initially it was like finding a distraction, and then it was trying to find something to educate, and especially for us. I mean, when Black Lives Matter kicked off, we were educating ourselves, trying to educate ourselves. So then we got into documentaries, and then we found more documentaries, and then we stayed on that forever. And then we needed a break, so we'd watch a popcorn flick movie, and then you have your guilty pleasures chucked in the middle of that. I'm still astonished at how much content is still coming out. I'm like, when did you make that? Because it's crazy. But then, one of our guilty pleasures is 24, right? And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to watch 24 again. Just gonna crack on an ep. Which one? Don't know. Let's go season 3. Let's do it. Season 3, I remember watching it for the first time in my southwest London flat, living on my own, no view of America in any way. There's a virus that's been released in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
Back to that again.
I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, there were all these freaks watching Contagion. Like Contagion jumped to number 1 on Netflix.
I watched it.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I also read the I think it's called The End of October, the Lawrence Wright novel that happened to be about a pandemic that came out. It was great. I loved it.
I think that's when people thought this was going to be done in like 3 weeks. It's like, once fall, summer rolls around, it'll be fine.
Make some sourdough, and we'll be back before we know it.
We'll look back on this thing and laugh our asses off.
I will learn Italian, and then we can go back to normal. It'll be great.
Just to really quickly jump off what Chris said, not to virtue signal my Berkeley roots. But I do think the pandemic's not going to teach us much. Black Lives Matter, I think is, and I think you see the entertainment industry is changing, and there's a lot of access for sort of underrepresented voices being given right now. I think the people who run the companies have actually stepped up, and I think it's going to only make for better and better art going forward.
Yeah, do you think the language has changed?
Yeah, it's true.
In the casting rooms, with the auditions, with the text, it's changed, and it's great. It's very, very refreshing to see.
So we know we want to let you guys go, and again remind people you can see the little scrolly thing going down here. If
there's a tiny URL. Yeah.
If you want Andy's, there's Andy's Gigantor thing, and we tweeted it out, and we'll tweet it out again. The link to go to.
One is too big, and the other's too small. Like, we don't have the technology for the perfect link. I mean, we just don't have it.
We'll post it again many times before Sunday.
But it's Sunday at 3 p.m. locally, 6 p.m. on the East Coast. When you guys look at, people have been, you mentioned before, Chris, people have been kind of catching up on the show throughout the pandemic, and you see more people getting into it. When people are done and they look at the 5 seasons and they look at those characters and everything that the show did with them, what do you want them to take away from it? Because these are complicated characters doing complicated things.
I'm gonna completely steal Falk's thing that he said 5 years ago that I've never forgotten. He said in the panel show when we were at the Austin Film Festival, and he said that no matter how flawed you are, you're still deserving of love. And I love that. I thought that was brilliant. We're all just trying to find our way, aren't we? And you have good days and bad days, and you make mistakes, and all that we can hope is that we grow and change and try and be better. And that's why I think, I used to hear people say that, I can relate to your character so much, like during season 1, and I was like, really? That's terrible.
I don't want to be your friend.
I don't want to be your friend. But then by the time we got to the end of it, I was proud of that, because every character had grown so much in their own little way, and that progression, that change, is what keeps us all rocking.
Could we answer the couple questions that before we go that came on the screen?
You guys can stay as long as you want.
Oh no, they took the time to pound out. Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
What was that?
Robin Goldstein says the music for the show was amazing. I learned about more new bands from You're the Worst than I did in 4 years of college radio. How did Stephen think about the music, and who chose it all?
So Tiffany Anders was our music supervisor. I think you're talking about that. Adam Blau was our composer, but the person who finds what are called needle drops, the songs that previously exist that we just then put on our show. Tiffany Anders, she's indie queen, Allison Anders, director of Gas Food Lodging.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and a bunch of great movies. Mi Vida Loca. That's her daughter, and so she is deep into the indie world and into the rock world, and found all of our stuff. And Tiffany Anders. She also performs, I think, under her own name, and she's amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
Lorenzo points out that's why I love You're the Worst. Despite their worst tendencies, you can see everybody was trying their best. Sort of to what Chris was talking about earlier.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, there was always a wonderful section towards the last third where we, they realized the mistakes, or they got even worse into trouble. Those were the bits like added with the music as well. I think the music's amazing. As I said, I'm rewatching. Do you remember Chicken Leg?
Chicken leg.
At the end of episode 2, so funny. I mean, the music's so important, but it's great. I'm finding it very kind of emotional, reminiscing about these kind of things. It was a fantastic time.
I'm just shocked that you are the truly rare actor who admits to actually watching their own stuff. Like, and this, by the way, is another way of looking at the invitation with more information on it. I'm just trying to help out here.
Thank you.
That's your arm.
There it is. That's his arm. This Sunday 3:00. It'll be a lot of fun. Please buy a ticket and come watch. And Chris will show you his boobs.
There you go. There you go.
Free nudity.
Pasties.
Well, right-offable nudity, I should say.
That's right. That's true.
Stephen Falk, Chris Geere, this was a ton of fun, and I really, really appreciate you guys doing this again. Go get yourself some tickets. We'll keep tweeting out the link to the events. It's a great show supporting a great cause, and a great chance to kind of catch up with these people doing some fun stuff this weekend. Sunday, 3:00 on the West Coast. Thanks, guys, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. The show's on Hulu. The show's on Hulu if anyone wants to watch it.
You're the Worst. Not this show.
Your show's not on Hulu.
Not yet.
And by the way, Chris, you should know that I told my kids I was talking to the You're the Worst guy. They weren't super impressed. I then told them I was talking to the Detective Pikachu guy, and they were really into it. So
yeah.
I hope you get residuals every time we upload that thing for movie night, because you could afford a beach house.
Oh, I tell you what, that movie was a godsend.
I love, by the way, that on your IMDb, the first role that you have after You're the Worst wrapped, the first role is actually Roger Clifford. Because I was like, man, you want to talk about the most different direction you can possibly go.
I know. We spoke about my team, as they say in America, but we were talking about how fun it was to do something so different straight away, which is great. So Yeah, next stop, Doctor Who. That's who I'm going for next.
Oh yeah.
Great. All right. Well, we see you guys, and again, check out the stuff on Sunday. And thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Steve, I'll see you Sunday.
Go. All right. Go Giants. SF Giants, not New York Giants.
All right. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being specific.
There you go. Whoop. There you go.
He's still trying to leave. It's a hard show to leave.
Trying to get him out.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. Well, thanks to those guys, and we'll let me throw the thing back up there so people can see it. But it really is. The show I find fascinating, and we talked a little bit about it before, and we'll do a little bit of Lakers stuff before we get out of here. Obviously, a really fun game tonight in Philly. Lakers lose by a point on a Tobias Harris almost buzzer beater. But one of the things that I think is fascinating about that dynamic of unlikable characters and how it's funny is they're not aspirational, but they're, you're not supposed to like sort of emulate or want to be their behavior. It's not held up as like admirable.
No.
What they're doing. The joke is generally on these people as opposed to on the others. But it's a really hard balance between making, unappealing people funny and real and all that. And the show does a fantastic job of it through 5 seasons.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think really helps with it is it's a very heightened, almost absurdist world that they live in, even though it's set in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there's a lot that's real in terms of landmarks and where they are, stuff like that. But I mean, Steve has talked about this before. Like it's a very heightened reality where I think you can get away with some of the really bad behavior because it is so absurd. Like, if it were, the emotions are grounded, and I think the relationships between the characters are grounded, but the world is heightened. And I think that's where you can have a certain amount of disconnection to where you can see the selfish behavior, something that you can still laugh at. And it is tricky. I mean, that's why I asked the question earlier about the idea of, what is funny to watch when it's bad versus what you draw the line with. Because I mean, I personally believe that anything can be fodder for comedy. Like I don't believe in the idea of things being off limits.
Well, yeah, we always make a joke. Funny trumps mean. Like
right,
if you're going to make a joke, like funny trumps mean, and it's not always true, but it kind of sometimes is.
But it's not even like mean. I mean, it's the idea of taboo subjects, things like that. I think anything can be fodder for comedy. However, the more taboo you go, and the more things that are inherently unfunny or even awful that you look to bring a comedic bent to, it just raises the bar for how good you have to do it. Because like you'll see, like one of the things that I hate with comics, and you often hear them bitching about cancel culture and stuff like that, is the idea that I think a lot of comics now get upset at basically audiences telling them to do better. Where I think sometimes they want credit for being outrageous without actually trying to work off, the top of their intelligence, or really trying to do something with the outrage. They just want credit for, oh, you went there. It's like, no. I mean, if you're not doing something with purpose, you're just looking to offend. It's not hard to offend. You just have to have a willingness to be seen.
No, what's brave and difficult now is saying the thing that is genuine and has truth to it that is also going to kind of offend and get you in trouble because it pokes at something that is true about, and I'm thinking this through out loud. I think it pokes at something that is true about the person that's listening to it, as opposed to punching down, which is, I know that's what we were getting into with like Shaq the other day when we were talking to, was it Law, or when we were just talking to among ourselves? I forget which show it was.
It was talking amongst ourselves.
Yeah. Like that's part of what why Shaq's thing doesn't play right is because he's always punching down. but part of what a Chappelle or somebody like that will do, where they even now will get themselves into territory, because it is hard to do stand up now if you're going to say anything that doesn't offend someone. But it's because they're uncovering something that's kind of truthful about the person, and I think that gets back to the characters.
No. I mean,
the word is that there's a part of all of these people that we recognize. Like,
of course,
I'm a little bit like that character. I'm a little bit like, we're all a little bit like George Costanza or Jerry Seinfeld or Elaine or Larry David or all these, like, just not hopefully that much.
Right. I mean, and nobody likes to admit it. Nobody likes to see themselves in that light. But it's interesting when you mentioned Chappelle, and I find Chappelle a very interesting case right now. And on balance, I am a Dave Chappelle fan. Mm-hmm. And I think Dave Chappelle at his best is as good as anybody who has done stand-up before. And, there are times when Dave Chappelle brings introspection and wisdom into comedy that is really, really insightful while still being really, really funny. But what I think is interesting about Chappelle too, and at times, frankly, disappointing, is he's one of these people that I think is caught up in the concept of cancel culture and, the sort of fictitious beast that he's fighting, or that other comics of his stature are fighting, when in reality, I think most of them really are not. I can't tell you how many clips of comics I've seen, talking about, well, you may not see me after this, I may be about to get canceled on some Netflix special where they got paid 7 to 8 figures. It's like, dude, you are clearly not about to get canceled.
It's the equivalent of going on,
but
CNN,
also
Fox News or whatever, and complaining that you're being canceled. It's like,
but what I'm getting at too, beyond that, is that attitude of cancel culture and, turning it into this, into this sort of automatic buzzword, I think sometimes leads to them doing comedy that punches down because they're trying to show that they are unafraid of cancel culture. And in doing that, for somebody like Dave Chappelle, I think he often ends up displaying the same lack of empathy that he, I think, very rightfully asks for, examination when it comes to what Black people in this country go through. And at the same time, he will punch down in certain areas too. And it can be disappointing to watch, in all honesty, when he's as good as he is.
Yeah, I think it's more, you just when you see stuff like that from people that you know are better.
Exactly.
But yeah, so cancel culture is, and what that is, that's a whole hour in and of itself. Before we get out of here, let's do a little bit on the game tonight. Lakers lose 107-106, I believe it was, to the Sixers in a game that looked like they were going to lose by a lot more than that. They had a 13-0 run at the end of the game, basically the last 2.5 minutes of the game, to take a 1-point lead on what was the most awesome out of bounds play. They call a timeout. I thought this was interesting, Andy. They call timeout, whereas the last time they were in this situation, a few games ago, they didn't. They brought the ball up. This time they brought it up, didn't see what they wanted. Vogel calls timeout. They set up a play, and holy shit, they ran it to perfection. You see Schroeder put a great screen on Embiid to spring AD, and they score. And then on the other end, the Philly gets the switch that they want. Mostly, I think, because LeBron can't leave Seth Curry. You end up with a switch with Caruso on Tobias Harris, which is a mismatch that Harris can exploit, and he does, and the Lakers lose. I don't find, I know there are some people, Andy, who will look at this and say they haven't played a lot of good teams and they lost to one tonight. I don't look at this as a particularly bad loss. Philly's the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. And after the first quarter, the Lakers actually did a really nice job, I thought, on defensively particularly, and figured some stuff out, at least later offensively. They just were bad offensively for most of the night.
Yeah, and they really struggled early on defending Embiid without sending him to the line. I think he took 5 free throws in like the first 7 minutes of the first quarter, and he picked up fouls about that after. Picked up fouls from Marc Gasol. He picked them up from AD. Montrezl Harrell checked in, and I think within his first 30 seconds ended up isolated against Embiid and picked up a foul. So, look, Embiid is playing at an MVP level this season. And I've been aware of how he's played and I've seen clips of it, but this may be the first game of his that I've watched from start to finish this intently, and certainly against a team as good as the Lakers. If this is indicative of how he's been playing all year, my God, he is taking like a next step in his career. I mean, because his outside shot, which, I used to think he frankly was wasting the Sixers and his own time, camping out as much behind the arc. It's dropping with more regularity now. He seems more engaged over the course of an entire game than he has been in the past. He's just really, really good. And the formula that they clearly went for, which is just surround Embiid and Simmons with more legitimate, you cannot leave them alone shooters, it's working so far. They look really good.
And you got to remember too, they're 13-6, but also too, they've had games where they've had to play with like nobody. Yeah. They had a game where technically speaking, they had 8 people available. Only 7 of them were actually healthy and they played the game. So Philly's been one of the teams that's been messed up by the COVID protocols. I think the thing, if you're a Lakers fan, I don't think you leave this game particularly concerned. Actually, I thought there were a lot of things. Schroeder had a very good second half, played very well. He looked much more like the guy from the first couple weeks of the season than the guy through much of January. You go, oh, okay, I remember why he was so valuable at the beginning of the year. LeBron, 34 points and 12 of 22 from the floor. The guy who continues to worry people is AD, and the line isn't terrible: 23 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks. And if you're a person who's kind of wondering like what the deal is with AD, why the numbers don't look quite right, the 3 or 4 points a game that you're expecting from him are all free throws that he's not making. And he was 5 of 10 tonight. I'm really starting to wonder if the free throw thing is one of, it's not the only thing, that's stupid and reductive, but if it's one of the things that's just kind of got him off balance. Like he looks uncomfortable with the fact he keeps missing free throws.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things when you've been as good at it as he has for certainly the recent part of his career, if not the entire majority. I don't remember all of his percentages off the top of my head.
It's been pretty good.
He's actually been quite remarkable for a big man. When you start struggling and you don't exactly know why, but it's something you've actually been really good at, it's got to feel pretty inexplicable. I actually retweeted from Brian Horton.
I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, go ahead.
At Run the Jewels. I thought he made a really good point when he said, I feel like a rational explanation for AD this season is that between him being new to a whole new load managing thing and the super short turnaround between the finals start of the season, still working his way back into shape and peak game condition, I retweeted that and I said, there could be something to this. AD has never experienced a playoff run nearly as long as last season's, which magnifies the turnaround. Conversely, LeBron is more experienced on this front, even acknowledging this year's unique circumstances. I wonder if AD is actually just feeling the effects of a finals run.
I think there's probably some truth to that. I look, I mean, when you don't have your legs, he is not as actively engaged. You could tell the difference between the AD defensively in the last 2.5 minutes of that game versus other parts of it when they're trying to come back and they're doing all that stuff. He's more active, he's more engaged, and as we've talked about a million times, like that's good. We want that. We don't want him, you don't want Anthony Davis working in that way all game long for 72 games. It's just a terrible idea. And so the legs could also explain the free throws. But what's like tonight, I haven't gone back and looked, but it seemed tonight it was definitely true. And it seems like it's true on others. It's the front end of these things that he's missing. And it's sort of the front end one is the one where you're waiting the longest and you go there. You have more time to think about it. And I think you're right. I think it's a lot of things at once, but every post game, he talks about how he's just shit and he's not playing well.
Trust me, no fan is more critical of AD right now than AD. LeBron was asked him, I'm like, he's fine. Like LeBron actually seemed kind of surprised by the question.
I mean, look, he's not playing at the level I think people would think.
I don't remember how the question was phrased to him, but it was phrased with like
Anthony saying he's straight. I remember it was like Anthony, was talking about struggling a lot and what are you seeing from him? And And LeBron didn't really entertain it, like you said. He just kind of dismissed the premise of the question.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is like, I mean, I think by normal human being standards, like, 97% of the league would kill to be playing like Anthony Davis underachieving.
Mm-hmm.
But AD has high standards for himself, and he has seen what he's capable of doing.
Yes.
At the highest level. Once you get a taste of that, man, you don't want to go backwards.
Oh, completely.
Even a little bit.
And, it's just, the level that's being said is MVP. Like, that's kind of what people were talking about. And, so the other thing, he's going to be fine. I mean, nobody needs to be worried about, Anthony Davis and whether or not, the last year in the run in the playoffs was some sort of, he's really good and everything's fine. And there's nothing really to worry about there. The other thing I thought was really interesting is we saw again in a close game against, an excellent opponent, that closing lineup of sort of the three guards with LeBron and AD, with Schroeder, Caruso, and KCP on the floor. Obviously, it didn't work on that last possession. It very much did work to get them back in the game, with that run. This is very clearly the default lineup that Vogel's going to work with little substitutions here and there, perhaps based on matchups.
Yeah, it was without coming out and saying it. I mean, it was pretty unprompted the way he talked about the defensive potential of that Schroeder, Caruso, KCP, LeBron, AD lineup. And I mean, honestly, 4 of the 5, everybody but Schroeder, to me, feels like, unless the matchup is really weird, those guys are locks, and it's really the 5th guy that's TBD. But Schroeder has made a good case for himself, certainly on balance. And, even when his shot hasn't been falling, and he has been struggling offensively, really, in January, he still plays with a ton of energy. He plays with a lot of defensive, I think, focus.
He's a much better defender than he was sort of advertised.
Yes, he has been better than I thought he was, to be perfectly honest. It feels like he got better over the last couple of years, and it wouldn't shock me if he actually picked up some stuff last year in OKC, because that team, when you're playing with guys like Chris Paul and Steven Adams and, Lou Dort enter the league really knowing how to defend. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, at his best, is, I think, actually a above average defender. I think there's going to be stuff that you just pick up. But, he's made a case for himself to be a part of that regularly. By the way, too, we heard Frank Vogel say fuck.
He did.
He was so mad at a call against Anthony Davis, he F-bombed the referee. It was actually pretty jarring to hear that word from Frank Vogel.
And he's going to get fined for washing his own mouth out with soap because he had to take his mask off.
But you know what, though? I actually saw him a lot keeping his mask up while still angry and still probably F-bombing the refs at the same time, because we've talked about this before. There may be nobody in America more conscious of wearing his mask at all times than Frank Vogel.
He's very good. He is not a super spreader.
No,
Frank
but
Vogel.
I mean, like, Frank Vogel dropping F-bombs is kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
It's very out of character.
I was proud of him.
I was too.
But I think, the Schroeder thing, like, you see offensively, I think in the second half tonight, you see offensively what he does and what he can do in terms, he hit the big 3. Caruso hit another big 3, which is huge. But the speed with which Schroeder can get to the rim is such a nice outlet to have that third shot creator. The third guy who can create a shot for himself on the floor is a really nice luxury for the Lakers. It's something that they have not had even last year when they won a title. And I think if his defense and guys like Pete Zayas, Kranjus McBasketball, Tim, from bballindex.com, they've done a lot of these breakdowns of what Schroeder does defensively well, and it fits with that group. So this is the group. People are still upset that they want Caruso to get more minutes and finish games. I just think ultimately, you're going to see less THT played tonight. You're going to see less Morris who only played, Morris played 13 minutes. You're just going to see those guys playing a lot less. You know, Cruz only played 16.
I feel right now with THT, and I believe in THT's potential. I think he's going to be a legitimate NBA player.
Yeah.
But right now, he feels when he plays like he's being shoehorned in. Because Vogel plays such a big rotation as it is. It's hard. I think it starts becoming difficult for a lot of these guys to really get into a groove, you know, not just individually, but collectively, when there are enough guys going in and out of that lineup. Like at some point, forget being an 11-man rotation, he's probably going to have to whittle it down to 9 or maybe 9.5. But I think you're going to start seeing Vogel, you know, maybe not by the end of January, even by the end.
But you know, as the season goes along, and THT is not going to play as much, and Morris is, you know, and it'll be fine. You want guys to be. It's the equivalent of giving, you know, the fourth or fifth, or you know, the fourth outfielder an extra start every week because you want them to be able to play when you need them, and that's how Vogel did it last year. It's how it's going to happen this year, and we all saw, like, he didn't play an 11-man rotation in the playoffs.
No,
and he's not going to this year.
No.
All right, so Lakers lose in Philly.
Turned out it started out a really choppy, kind of ugly game. By the end,
it was fun. Yeah, the Lakers looked like they did not play a really particularly good game. It was a grind. They were still close at halftime. They still kept it in, and they had obviously. I think you like that they didn't quit on the game. The Lakers sort of have that implicit permission to go ahead and fold it up when they're down by 9 or 10 points with a couple minutes left, and nobody's really going to criticize.
They are blatantly pacing themselves and exuding as much energy as is necessary without going even like a fraction overboard if they can avoid it. And by the way, you and I have both said that is the smart call given the context of this season, but they are not blowing off the regular season. They didn't blow it off last year. They're not blowing it off this year.
Yep.
They are doing this with professionalism, not indifference.
There's a difference. But there's a difference. All right. So a lot of fun stuff coming up on the show for the rest of the week and into next week. Tomorrow night, Sam Esfandiari and Andy Liu from the Light Years podcast up in the Bay Area. They are a ton of fun. And so we'll talk more NBA, a lot of Pacific Division hoops. Friday, Nikias Duncan, who is just, if you don't know him, find him on Twitter. One of the best young basketball writers out there, just really getting everybody to stand up and kind of notice the work that he's doing with basketball news, among other places. Got a great new podcast that we'll talk about as well. Monday, Meta World Peace going to join the show.
Yes.
We'll have Meta with us for an hour from 10 to 11. I don't think I have to tell you that Meta World Peace is a fun man to talk to for an hour.
Yes,
and then Tuesday, Jake Brennan, who is the host of the incredibly entertaining Disgraceland podcast. Really just a fun music show with kind of a crimey and grimy twist to it.
Actually, it doesn't celebrate. I should not say, that's the wrong way to set it up. It takes deep looks at, frankly, I mean, it's fitting for the show we were talking about today and the characters on You're the Worst, bad behavior.
Yes.
In popular music and rock and R&B and rap, and it breaks down
of which there is some.
Yeah, it breaks down all these different stories of just crazy, excessive behavior. I've been a big fan of this podcast for a few years now. Very, very excited to have him on.
Yeah, some great guests to finish up this week. Meta World Peace and Jake Brennan to start off next week. Fun stuff coming up on the Late Night Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Or just show up here and never miss an episode. We'll see everyone tomorrow night.
Dank u, Nederland.